uh, our panelists today, and also talk a little bit about how this discussion is expected to go. We're trying to make it very interesting for everybody. So, so to start with, Anil, quick intro about Anil. So yeah, I'm reading, so maybe I'll be a little monotonous as I read that. But Anil is internationally certified NLP trainer and Gestalt therapist, and he attributes his skills to Dr. Richard Dick McHugh through Dick's teaching and his passion for the subject. Anil was fortunate to deepen his knowledge for NLP under the guidance of John Grinder and co-developers such as Judith Deloiser and Robert Dilton. So with 11 years of enriching years, Anil has been a facilitator for global certification courses in NLP, Gestalt, including Australia, Russia, USA, and China. He is also a mentor with the International Journal of Neuro-Linguistic and Gestalt Psychology. He's authored multiple books and contributed to a lot of podcasts, blogs, and research endeavors. I found this very interesting, so I want to also mention that what Anil spoke about Dick McHugh was that on the death of my guru, my inspiration, Dick McHugh, I went in search of the source of NLP. This quest led me to meet and earn and facilitate the mentorship of the co-creator of NLP, such as Judith Deloiser, Robert Diltus, and John Grinder himself. Each of them is a fountain of knowledge, and I'm very grateful to drink from this fountain. So that's Anil. Thank you, Anil, for taking out time and being here with us today. And I will now talk about and introduce Surya to everyone. Surya is a seasoned professor of organizational behavior at Janssen School of Business in Coimbatore, a PhD, and his expertise extends far beyond his classroom. He's got 30 years of a very diverse professional experience. He's engaged in teaching, counseling, corporate coaching, training, facilitating, and consulting. And his credentials are accreditations as teaching and supervising transactional analyst in organizations and master practitioner in NLP as well. He has held significant roles in South Asian Association of Transaction Analysis, called as SATA, and International Transaction Analysis Association, also being a president, serving from 2015 to 2017 of this association. Recognitions are many. One of them, which I would want to call out, is the Muriel James Living Principles Award by ITA, and he's also received Outstanding Service Award for his commitment from SATA as well. So yeah, I mean, and apart from academia, Surya co-founded the Relations Institute of Development, offering organizational development training and coaching services using TA and other frameworks. And his influence is not just limited to India. He's a published author, and so is Anil as well, and both in international, national journals, presenter as well. So I can go on about talking about Surya. I think one thing I'd still want to add to all of this is that he is also an ultra marathoner and also orchestrate events like TEDx and conferences as well. So yeah, with that, I want to welcome Surya to our session today. And again, Surya, thank you so much to you and Anil again for taking out time and being here.
Thank you, Kunal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And before I sort of get started, get you guys to talk to each other, this is what we're planning to do. But just for our audiences today, a few requests. I would not call them as house rules. That sounds so strong. But yeah, requests are that keep your videos on. Trust us, we will not judge you. So you can really be in your most casual clothing if you are there. Only request is don't drive and log on to Zoom or switch on your cameras. We don't want you to do that. So, it's best you are on an audio mode, but we prefer that you are in a static location on your desktop or laptop, listening to us and interacting with us. There's also one more, suggestion for everybody that, this webinar is not going to be like a presentation or, like a Q&A also, but it's more or less like a conversation between Anil and Surya, with I playing maybe a role of a timekeeper, and that's all I'm contributing as today. Anil and Surya also have a lot of questions that you all put into your registration, so they already have a fair idea of what all you are expecting today. But at any point you have questions, please feel free to come, on a video and a audio mode. We don't want you to put it in chat. If you want to, you can do that, but you can go ahead and raise your hand and go ahead and ask that question, address it to them. Only request is that your question should be under less than 45 seconds. So it needs to be really sharp, and it should, it can avoid the thank yous and the pleasantries. So you can straight away jump to your questions. We have a very large audience. We have about 70 participants. We are expecting another 30 to 40. So it's going to be a traffic jam if everybody starts the pleasantries and the thank yous. So if you have questions, just bring them on, raise your hand, and at the right time, we will request you to ask each one of them. So that's all from my end. Surya, Anil, is there anything that I am forgetting to mention or say? Okay. So great. I think, why don't you take over? The first question that I think everybody wanted and a lot of people have asked at the bottom line is, please tell us what is transaction analysis. Please tell us what is NLP. That's the first one.
Okay, thank you, Kunal. You did a fabulous job of introducing and also presenting the structure of the session. It gives me immense pleasure to be here and, of course, having this conversation with Anil. It's lovely to be with you as well, Anil. And yeah,
I'm more than nervous to share the stage with you, Surya, with all the kind of years of experience and expertise and change framework that you brought to the field.
It's indeed a privilege, to share this, because NLP is something very close to my heart as well.
And very few of them would know that we both learned from the same teacher. Huh?
In fact, I share the same appreciation and admiration for Dick McHugh, with whom I learned my NLP and my both my basic and my masters, and went on to do the meta and other programs. Even I learned Gestalt from Dick. I was fortunate enough to learn all that when he was alive as well. So it's really lovely to share this space with you.
So I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. You have an all-in-one person who's having NLP, Gestalt, and TA. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing out here today.
No. Transaction analysis is my primary frame of reference. NLP and Gestalt is something that probably adds more flavor to it and adds a little more depth to my work. Because that is, since Kunal started with what is TA and NLP, I would start with TA and maybe say what I see as the maybe link or the difference between the two, and then you could definitely present your vision of it. See, for me, transaction analysis is primarily a language. That's how I see it. It provides a vocabulary to think through our own experiences, and also to articulate and communicate our experiences. To me, fundamentally, that is what TA is. Irrespective of whether it is used in therapy or in coaching or counseling or in organizations or in educational settings, because these are all the various formal areas where certification in TA is available. And of course, the international TA associations definition of transaction analysis is it's a theory of personality and human relations, offering systematic methodology for personal growth and professional development. So originally it was developed as a theory for psychotherapy, like most of the psychology theories in the early 1900s and the mid 1900s, deriving its inspiration from, of course, psychoanalysis. But Eric Berne developed this framework as a theory that is accessible and also affordable to the participants. So it is primarily a theory of personality, helping us to understand our own selves. And it also is a theory of communication, helping to understand what happens between people. And it also offers a theory of framework for child development, helping us understand how we develop from birth up to old age and so on. And it's also a theory of helping us understand our own life course and life dynamics, including providing a framework to understand groups and the dynamics that takes place within groups. So I, in my experience, see TA as sort of a meta theory, which encapsulates several other psychological frameworks, which helps us to understand the individual, helps us to understand the interpersonal, and also they understand what happens within groups and so on. So, and in fact, interestingly, Eric Berne said, if you had to summarize the whole thing, transaction analysis is about understanding what is happening intrapsychically from what we could observe interpersonally. So the emphasis is on what is happening between people, but the way of working is to getting an insight as to what is probably going on within the person that is resulting in this sort of interaction. And that is how it becomes a very powerful framework to, especially in working with in coaching as well.
Yeah. Well, so did I lose voice?
No, you are clear.
Okay, okay. So I'm supposed to speak what is NLP, right? Okay. So NLP is a set of tools. Okay. And to operate those tools, you need a set of skills. And you assimilate and integrate and amalgamate these tools and you form techniques. These techniques are processes. So if a client is coming with a condition, a situation, a concern, a presenting problem, what NLP or an NLPer would do is be able to elicit in rapport what is it that they are saying and what is it that they are saying about what they are saying. And then to...
Can you repeat?
Sorry?
Can you repeat again? What did you say?
For
example, a client came. Let's count then.
Okay, I'll start all over again. So NLP is an approach to ask the client, what do you want? Well, they may come and tell you a list of things. I've been abused, I've been abandoned, I've gone through trauma, they don't listen to me, all the 22 classic cases which can be presented in every table. There isn't a 23rd, right? Everything that comes in. When the client comes and tells you this, my question or our question to the client is, that's okay, what do you want? It's a journey in the forward. It's a journey into the future. Okay? The past and the present is only in their augmentation. It's presented to them in a representational system. And it's happening nowhere else in this universe other than their imagination. So, well, my question to them would be, or what NLP is, to find out, what are you telling and what are you telling about what you're telling? Or what are you thinking and what are you thinking about what you're thinking? What are you feeling and what are you feeling about what you're feeling? And so, well, I'm thinking about this big Mercedes car. Great. What do you think about what you're thinking? I think, how can people afford it and not me? Well, what you're thinking is lack. So the thinking and the feeling is the connection. And then it's a set of tools, it's a set of skills, it's a set of techniques. It's a powerful set of questions which we would ask to elicit what is it that the client is presenting and what's underneath what they're presenting. Technically, what I want to ask is, what is your secondary gain? Or what I really want to elicit from that presenting model is, how come in a world of so many choices, you have chosen this to be the only choice? You know, a very classic approach. And then to use those processes to see whether this fits well. And what if this concern doesn't exist? How does the client live a model life? So NLP is to ask the client, well, can you do what you say you want to do? Would you lose something if you got what you wanted to do? Yeah, and it's a set of presupposition which assumes that the resources are within the client. It's a language pattern. It's a communication model. It's to understand where in the psyche of the client has the client saved the unwanted emotions and the unwanted thoughts. Because every event can be classified into information and emotion. Yeah, that's the only two things available to every coordinate, right? Well, what is the reason that the client is still keeping an unwanted emotion with them? That's the secondary gain, or that's the positive intention. And then to find out if they let go of that, what would they lose if they let go of that pain? Because pain becomes pleasure, pain becomes badge of honor, pain becomes, you know, the definition of sacrifice is so central to some people's living existence. And that's the narrative, as they call in TA, you know, that's the scripts that they live by, you know. So the understanding of that is what NLP is. So the tools will fail, the skills will not. NLP is based on calibration. NLP is based on building rapport. It's about offering space. It's about holding the container in empathy. It's about offering yourself without judgment. It's extremely the ability to be present in this potency, in this very pregnant moment. That's the skill. So the skills will never fail you. Well, the tools will. The ones who will use a toolbox is only a technician. So NLP is, of course, a set of tools, which eventually gives you a set of techniques. But what wins is the skills, which is within the therapist, within the coach, within the interventionist, and this field knowledge, information, which is the space of wisdom. Yeah, so that's a brief of what I think what NLP is, and I don't know if that is NLP. And to summarize all of it, we'll say, well, the map is not the territory. What I think is not the reality. You know, the food is not the menu is not the food. The word is not the thing. So at the end of the day, I don't know what I said is mine. It's not universal. And that brings personal experience. So NLP is the study of subjective experience. And therefore, your experience is unique to you, and it cannot be generalized, will not be generalized, should not, must not. Well, and then now we'll discover what more do you have in store, and together we'll find out. What's this, Surya?
As I hear you, you know, what struck me is something that I always was amazed about these two approaches. At the outset, when, you know, for an onlooker or first time somebody is encountering them, they may look very, very different, like cheap shop. Because the frameworks and the modalities, you know, they all seem so different. But if you really look at it at the base, at the core, as you rightly said, both serve the same purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And there are different approaches towards supporting people change.
Yeah.
Eventually. So change what? I'm reminded what Father George Kandathil used to say. He was supposed to be the father of TA in at least most of India. He used to say, what is counseling? What is coaching? Or what is therapy? The client comes with a story in their head, and they have to walk out with another story. And your job is to hold them the space to create that new story.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that summarizes what is primarily we are doing, either be a coach or a facilitator or a consultant or a therapist. So for me, transaction analysis provides a way or framework to understand the what of it, what is happening in the person, what is this person doing, and so on, or even to some extent the why of it. Why is someone behaving in this manner and all that stuff? And NLP provides a lot of how of it, you know, in terms of how do I make this person change? How do, invite, an insight? How do I facilitate? So for me, they both marry very well together in terms of practice. And that is where I find their relevance in coaching actually.
Yeah. I think NLP is the structure to build structures. It's not the structure. It's the model to build the model. It's not the stencil. It's the stencil to build the stencil through which you can extract what you want. So NLP is a modeling tool. And if I can do it, you can do it. And if somebody else has done it, I can do it. Now, the question to ask in NLP is, so if somebody is doing it, what is the impedance in your journey to absorb that information or assimilate that information? Now, where is the block? Well, if Surya can do it, I can do it. And if I can do it, someone else can do it. If Ravi is doing it, I can look at him and learn. That's how children learn. Children assimilate unconsciously random patterns of people around them without even questioning, codes it within their representational systems and presents it back just as though they were the first one to ever do it, which is why children under the age of 10 can learn 3 to 4 and 5 languages. And the adult at the age of 40, they find it difficult to learn one language and not just learn the language, but to be able to speak like a native speaker. So what is it the child doing differently from the adult? And that's the difference that really creates the difference. As an NLPer, that's where I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is, well, hey, what is the impedance? Forget what the problem is. Forget what you're telling me about the abandonment, the abuse, the trauma, whatever happened. I'll hold that container till my question to you comes, well, that's okay. What do you want? And once you tell me what do you want, my question is to evaluate, hey, what's stopping you from getting there? And well, now these blocks could be blocks in the environment. These blocks could be blocks in your beliefs. These could be beliefs about yourself, beliefs about them. It's about your self-concept. It's about your self-esteem. It's about your identity. It's about your capability, capacity. It's about, some of these aspects where you say, well, I cannot do this. I don't want to do this. It's a skill issue. It's an attitude issue. It's a belief issue. Now we're working with these blocks because the moment you superimpose it, well, the change is evident and it begins to move. So what's the block? Where's the block? Can we move it? Is it malleable? Is it ductile? Which direction is it? What's the matrix? What's the psychodrama? Well, that's neuro-linguistics, so that's the framework. That's the approach.
Yeah. So as I hear you, one thing that comes to me is NLP sometimes may look content agnostic. Sometimes I may not even need to know the exact content, but in TA, there's a whole lot of frameworks help you provide you concepts and models to study and understand the content. Use the word child and adult. So in fact, anybody who have come across, heard a little bit of TA would be familiar with the parent, adult, and child. And in fact, TA is known for its simple language. Yeah, wherein you take all the words from normal usage and they're used to help us understand human psyche. So the way as a transactionalist probably approaching, for example, in coaching or any practice for that matter, is to understand where is this coming from. Like, maybe an executive is coming with some relational issues at work, or they're coming with, something blocking them from performing to the performance issues. Then you were talking about blocks. So transactionalism, we look at on what is called possible contaminations, which is, in other words, limiting beliefs that is stopping the person from bringing their full potential out, which is normally in the form of either our past, in the form of child, or in the form of the parent, ego states. We call ego states is the framework, for example, used extensively when we are working with any client. So we look at how is my past in the form of either child or the parent influencing my adult, which is the part of me which is functioning in the here and now, which is functioning in the present in a way which is appropriate to the current reality. Knowing what are those beliefs that is limiting the adult functioning, and then, encountering and challenging those beliefs to help, the coachee or the client re-decide for themselves. So that's why it is more of an analytical approach. So using several frameworks. I could see one hand up.
Yes, there are a couple of them. Aniruddha also had a question. So again, request you to, go ahead with your questions, Aniruddha, and then we can follow it up with GC. Keep it brief.
Thank you so much. Quick 10 seconds. Thanks, Meena, for inviting me to this constellation of stars. I'm so grateful to be here. Quick question. Anil, what a fantastic way you explained NLP. And Surya sir, thank you for the TA part. Now this new animal comes in ICF, which does not allow us to advise or give any suggestion to the client as far as ICF competencies goes. The question is, how do we marry these three when we are doing an intervention with the client?
Well, I'm going to take, can I jump in, Surya?
Yes, Anil. Yes.
Well, I don't think suggestion is a part of any form of intervention, be it counseling, be it coaching, be it therapy, be it even parenting, or even as a teacher. The moment you start suggesting, you've robbed the opportunity for the client to discover what's their gold or what's their heaven. So you got to walk that path with them till they realize the agenda over there in that room is not to show them what you know. It's to go there as someone who doesn't have judgment, point of views, beliefs, or any understanding over there. Go in with curiosity. One of the premise of understanding that client intervention thing is that room at that point in time is a discussion between two competent people. As long as this presupposition is not understood, well, we're always going to have a hierarchy in that room. It's two competent people. One of them may be competent about the skills and the tools, and the other is more competent about their life. And as long as that respect is not brought in, well, now it doesn't matter what tool you use, whether you use a CREP or a DOSA, it's NLP or TA, they're all the same thing. And at the end of the day, the aim is to achieve the same thing, So these are all skill sets. These are all tools. These are all languages. But in that sessions room, your journey, most of the times it's the therapist, it's you. And your presence is what the therapy that they experience. And Judy says, if your presence can't heal, don't even try words. So suggestion is out. It's a clear out.
Thank you.
So I absolutely agree with you, because in transaction analysis also that is the same. In fact, if you look at transaction analysis, it is built on the philosophy or belief that people are okay, people can think, and people can choose to change. It's the fundamental beliefs or assumptions of philosophy in transaction analysis. So therefore, again, as Anil rightly said, in transaction analysis also, Byrne himself has said, the change takes place in the relationship, or change takes place through the relationship. So one of my trainers, Saru, used to say, the person I am is what I bring into all that I do. And therefore, it is that relationship and the presence that matters most than advice or suggestion. Because the moment I give or make a statement or give a suggestion or an advice, then I stop the other person to think. And it also comes from a TA language, it comes from a position of, I know better what is good for you. Which, in other words, fundamentally comes from a space of, I am okay and you are not okay. I know how to think and how to solve it, whereas you are not. But one of the fundamental things very early in practitioner training in TA, we emphasizes the client is the expert of their life. And I'm here with these process skills to help them, facilitate them to find their own light. So that is the premise, and with my limited knowledge of what ICF competencies are, that is exactly what they say, going there with a coach mindset, which principally says, go with the sense that I am okay and you are okay. And I totally believe that you can think and you can choose and make the changes that you want to do in your life. So I don't see any incongruency in any of these approaches.
Yeah.
In fact, they are based on somewhere in the same humanistic principles and values.
Yeah. And, sometimes in a sessions room, when you have this urge to suggest, the question is, whose urge is this? What is the transference from there? And what did you identify with? Did you identify with the client or the victim? And well, that's a transference that happened over there. And the whole thing at that point in time is, guess who the client is now? Now we have two clients there, because there is competition, there's contest, there's a need.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And just a follow-up question. So how do you introduce a tool in a ICF situation? How do you introduce a tool to a client?
Well, I don't understand by the question, how do you introduce? Well, it's a conversation, right? A therapy session or a coaching session, and I'd like to use the word intervention because it includes all of it, whether it's coaching, counseling, therapy, parenting, whatever. It's just conversation between two people. How do you introduce the next topic in any conversation? You do it in rapport, you pace well, you be present well, you hold the container till you find the right time to bat that ball. How do you know that I have to hit the next 6? You don't know. You wait, you watch, you take the sensory acuity, you make that decision. It's being present. It's here and now. It's a term that we commonly use, but the question is, when you are here and now, where are you and who are you? And when you get that, you begin to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, in TA, the same thing we approach from a contractual manner, because tools and techniques are used both intrinsically and also sometimes extrinsically, explicitly. So if you feel the need to introduce a tool explicitly, then we again resort to contracting, saying that, look, this is what coming up to me. Possibly, would you be interested in exploring this? Again, it is the choice of the client. So I'm not saying this is the best thing for you, so let us do it. No. So because that is the reality, isn't it? The client does not have the tool or the knowledge of the tool. So I could introduce, and if the client says, no, it doesn't suit me, absolutely fine. Then we move on with what works. But most of the time, the work is implicit. The frameworks are used to help to understand the internal world, or in NLP language, the map of the client, so that we could help them navigate the space with the resources they have.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jesse, can we have you? And again, just reminder, start with your question and try to finish it in 20 seconds. No thank yous and pleasantries. We can
Is there a time frame? Is there a time frame for us to finish the response?
No, I'll let you in. That's fine. We're progressing good. Thank
I have privileges, right? Surya, we have privileges.
Oh, yeah. But you can always tell us if we get carried away.
Absolutely.
It could happen at times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see 3 hands or 2 hands now.
Yeah, Jesse, go ahead.
In NLP, you have used the words tools and techniques, and in TA, you have used the words framework. So, but at the end, we both are talking about beliefs and certain common things, maybe. I just wanted to, NLP, I know a little bit, but the TA, I don't know anything. Is it possible to give an example so that it's clear for me? Forgive me if the question is a little childish. Thank you.
No. I'll give you a very quick response to this. Say, for example, a client comes with a performance issue or relational issue with a superior or with their team. Okay. And first thing that we look for in TA is, what is that limiting belief that is behind this issue that the client is bringing. For example, it could be a fear of authority, which in TA language we say the child ego state interfering with the adult, wherein the child ego state, the person believes I am not capable, or possibly there is a parent contamination of the adult, which is primarily coming from, again, a parental belief that if you assert yourself or if you ask for what you need, then you are not okay. So we identify these beliefs and then we work with the client. Of course, it's not our interpretation. It's more like inviting the client into that awareness and using that insight and awareness to help the client redesign.
Yeah.
So we work
Surya, I think you're breaking up.
So till Surya comes in, I'll cover it up.
Yeah.
Well, these are all languages.
Am I clear?
Yes, Surya.
Yeah, just breaking up a little bit in the end, Surya.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So primarily, TA is an analytical approach. We work a lot with the content of what the client is bringing in. But It's not based on interpreting what the client is bringing, but using the, say, the model or the framework of ego states to help the client gain more insights and therefore choose differently.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, these are all languages. When you ask the question, which is right, which is wrong, which is good, which is best, they're all comparisons. I think the best way of evaluating something is by asking the question, is it useful? क्या करेगा ना, if it's good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, क्या करेगा ये सब लेकर? These are all market standards, commercially introduced things. Teachers tell us that this is a wrong formula. Forget that if it's a wrong formula. Tell me what's a useful formula over here. You know, so the question is it useful? I just saw someone saying, which is the best certification? I'm like, whatever works, you know, it's pointless. Get the skills, and skills is what will change the game. If you can
also, sorry, Tanil. And moreover, whatever works for you.
Yeah,
and your
subjective experience.
Yeah, that's more important. In fact, I can't but share what Eric once said. He said, cure the patient and then analyze. Do whatever that would help the person move on, and then look at, okay, what worked, and then
yeah. That's very interesting, Surya. This line, Dick would say, this is very interesting. When you get these multiple modalities in place, you'll realize that how they're all the same. Dick would say the cause of the problem has got nothing to do with working with the client and achieving what they want in a future tense, which is just what he said, right? Cure the patient and then analyze. What do you do with that information? It's of no use. Yeah. We can take the next question.
Yeah. Anil, when you answered the first question, not going with a suggestion.
Yeah.
Right. It's very clear what an interventionist should not do.
Right.
Borrowing the word from Surya, that uncontaminated, the self which I'm going to bring to the discussion there. Can you just give an idea of how that person looks like as an interventionist, the uncontaminated person?
Yeah. I'm going to respond that in 2 sentences. The first is what Dick would say. What does a therapy room look like? He would say, well, a therapy session, a coaching intervention, whatever that is, can be broken down into 3 stages. Stage 1, client and therapist. Stage 2, client and client. Stage 3, only client. At some point in time, the therapist has to become a complete mirror so that the client can see themselves completely without any transference, without any reflection. And my second point is, while in a session of therapy, notice what that the client brings in is triggering you, or what is the urge that one would have to compare their experiences, or what is the urge that one would have to button, or what's the difficulty in staying silent. When you're able to elicit these aspects, you would be able to understand that the work has to be done here. And I remember one of my teachers saying that, isn't it interesting, Anil, now that the client is paying money to let you know what you need to work with? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
TA, as you beautifully said, Anil, you say that the coach or the counselor, you are the instrument.
Yeah.
So it's important that we constantly calibrate ourselves.
Well, yeah.
Invest a lot on our own self-work through whichever, but constantly calibrating. So therefore, I'm available fully to the person who's sitting in front of me there.
Yeah. Calibration is the mother of all skills. If you got to learn something, learn calibration. And if you got to learn, just calibrate. Calibration is the mother of all goddamn skills. It's the first skill in neuro-linguistics. It's the first thing in Gestalt. It's the first step, calibration. Yeah.
Monzia?
Yeah.
So I wish I could give you one example. Due to time shortage, I'm just sharing. Recently, I'm dealing with 2 clients who are they are not having insight, I guess. They are adolescent. Whenever I'm asking any question, they are as if like they are talking to their world. Whatever question I'm asking, I also believe that they have the resources within them to resolve the issue, whatever they are facing. But it feels like they don't want to think. They don't want to feel. It's like
how do you conclude that about the client, that they don't want to think, they don't want to feel? That's a judgment.
Yeah. Okay.
What sensory observation do you have with which you can conclude that they do not want to do it? That's a judgment.
Yeah,
That's a point of view.
It can be. I will definitely analyze. It feels like whenever I'm asking any question, they are not responding. They are just
and
drawing into their
and when you ask a question and they don't respond, ask them in a way that they will respond. Meet people where they are at. Meet them at their map.
Okay.
Talk to them in a language that stirs the pot. The resistance is never in the client. The fact that they're there is explicit, that there is no resistance there. So it's a skill upgradation.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you want to be the client for a minute? Be that client. Let's take it. Be the client. Be the client. Yeah. Be that same client, and I'll be you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to spotlight you, Monzia. But
yeah.
Hey,
Monzia, what do you want at the end of the session?
I want to feel good.
And how would you know that you're feeling good?
Whenever Atoshi is with me, she
Hey. How do you know you would feel good?
Atoshi does not love me.
Hey, you want to feel good. So tell me, how do you know you feel good?
When Atoshi will love me.
Got it. And how do you know that you will feel good? What in your body you know you feel good? And when Atoshi loves you, what happens to your body?
Okay, I got it. I got it. Okay. Actually, from her to bring her into his intrapsychic process.
Don't play the game the client is going to play with you.
Yeah. He's like talking about her, and I'm like trying to bring her into her intrapsychic process. Which thank you so much, Anil. Thank you, Surya. If you want,
I'll send the bill later on.
Sorry.
I'll send the bill later on.
Sure. Thank you. Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sabri? Or was it Sundar?
Thanks.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So this NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the very word, is a little bit of a misnomer as I understand it. Because the moment I say NLP, it looks like a green color, what do you call that? The blueprint, the computer's chip, something like that. So anyway, that is what the first feeling I got. But I just want to know, as a tool, NLP as a tool, how do we use it to work on the script?
Well, that's a 20-day answer.
Huh?
That's a 20-day answer.
Okay. Sorry. No, I always wondered, because I just feel the script is not sacrosanct. We need to do something about it, to change it, to revise it, to become a better individual.
NLP doesn't have the wisdom.
I'm stuck in the script, because I feel we need to move on. So I just want to know, your insight in this.
Well, I didn't get the question clearly.
If the script, how do we edit the script? That is.
What do you mean by edit the script?
Well, if I'm behaving in one particular way, one can tend to say that's your script. You inherited that script, and you are using that.
Come with a problem. Tell me a situation. What are you going through? What do you want to work with?
Fixed ideas.
Let's say you are with me in my therapy room. Okay. And I'm asking you, hey, Sundar, what do you want at the end of this 1 hour? You've paid some money. What do you want at the end of this 1 hour?
I want clarity
About?
About myself.
That's good.
I have some fixations.
That's good
I
clarity.
want to overcome these fixations.
Say that again.
I have some fixations which I want to overcome.
That's good clarity for what you want clarity. What is it that you have fixation about?
Certain fixed ideas,
Like what?
To put it specifically, well, I'm working on this, you see, on myself. I'm just trying to figure out how best to overcome the script and become a better.
What is it on which you have a fixed idea?
Maybe my upbringing. In the beginning of this session.
Forget the maybe, Sundar, forget the maybe. What is it on which you have a fixed idea?
Somebody, someone said about this Mercedes. I think you or Surya, someone said. I'm just coming back to that. Maybe, the longing for me to have a Mercedes. Say, supposing I want to buy something and I find that car already being driven in the road, right in front of me.
Sundar, do you want to work with something or you want to just give me examples?
Well, I'm just talking about my own thought process.
What is the fixed idea that you want clarity about unfixing it?
My inability to overcome the script. Maybe I come from let us say, a lower middle class background, and I have inherited certain values, limiting belief, we can say.
Your limiting belief is about what?
About how best to function, how best to, my limiting belief is maybe I'm not good enough.
Good. That's good enough to work with. Okay. Yeah. Let's assume that's your limiting belief, that you're not good enough. Tell me that. Say that again.
Yeah. So I'm not good enough, for example.
Just say that again.
I'm not good enough.
Perfect. Just say that again.
Yeah, I'm not good enough.
Perfect. What do you feel when you say that?
I do feel a little hurt, a little incapacitated.
Very good. Say that again. What are you feeling?
I'm feeling, limiting, what do you say, scale.
Okay, good. Tell me that limiting belief again. Tell me that limiting belief again.
Limiting belief is possibly my own inability to come to
you
terms.
said I'm not good enough. Say that again.
I'm not good enough?
Yeah, say that again.
I'm not good enough.
What do you feel this time?
Yeah, I'm reckoning that I'm coming to grips with it. I'm just beginning to address it.
What clarity do you have now?
Yeah, I need to only tackle it. There's nowhere else I need to look for an answer.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you.
Thank you.
When you look the demon in the eye, the demon looks back at you.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's this framework of change. Look in the eye of the demon. Right. Star Trek.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Surya.
Thank you, Sundar. Sabri, can we have you?
Yes, thank you. Anil and Surya, the question is actually to both of you, and I've really loved how you both are building on each other. So one of the things that you both mentioned is that there's also a dynamic in play, right? You're also looking at the relationship that's happening in between. And so my question is really is, with whatever techniques or frameworks that you're comfortable with, how do you stay alive to the dynamic that's happening between you and the coachee in the room? And I'm just curious to know, how do you work with that? Because you are present, you're in the here and now. So I'm just curious, how do you stay alive? How are you processing that in the moment?
Hey, so may I check with you? That is Shabri. Okay. So, Shabri, are you there?
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you pretty clearly.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
So I was basically wondering about how to respond to this question of yours. And in fact, I was reflecting on, should I give an answer or should I counter it with another question? Possibly, I now choose to do the second.
Okay.
How would it make you a better coach, knowing how to be in the deal with my own process, your own process in the coaching session?
To me, every time you're working with someone else, I was struck by what maybe I think, Anil, you mentioned, that the client is paying you to work with yourself. You're also working with yourself. It is, there's something happening with you as well. So I was just curious about that. That's why I feel that it helps you become a better coach, to be alive to the process that's happening inside you. So
Can you bring life for you in terms of something from your own experience?
Surya, repeat that question again, please. The next one.
Is something specific which comes alive for you
Yeah.
in terms of what experience has been with any particular client?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
an example?
Yes.
So let's say they're working with authority issues, and then what comes alive is also not my work with authority issues, but the authority dynamic in this relationship between the coach and the coachee. So I'm just curious, how does that framework then come in, and how do you work with that in that moment?
What's affecting you?
Sorry?
How is that affecting you?
How it's affecting me is that in that moment, it's activating that process for me. And I'm curious about, therefore, okay, not just the authority dynamic that person's working with, but also in this room. So
can you name that process that is going on within you? What are you sitting with as you see that client's process is stirring something in you as well?
Maybe a process of working with authority that I haven't worked with enough. Yeah, so as in the moment, that's also something that's happening with me. So
get in touch with something.
Yeah.
There in you as well. In a sense, Anil was referring to how at some point we become the mirror of the client. So how is that experience that you are inside helpful for you in your work with the client?
In fact, it might actually disturb the moment if I'm constantly working with it at that point of time with myself. I see that.
Do you see some value in the reaction of yours that you could bring to the table in your work with the client?
And the value could be, and I'm just thinking out aloud here in terms of just expressing my own process of working with it, my own vulnerability. I don't know whether it might add or it might detract, or it might just keep the whole process the same. I have no clue in the moment.
Do you see any other value?
At this point, no, this was the only thing that was coming up for me. The value for me and the value of, does it help the client if I express it? That there's this dynamic happening here as well.
Expressing it in one option. What could be the other option?
Reflecting on it later, maybe, and working with it later with maybe my mentor coach or someone. That could be another one.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, how could you stay in contact with the client? So what would you do in order to stay in contact with the client?
So sometimes what I do, and this is a very tactical thing, but when I have my book, I actually make a note of it so that it goes away from my mind into a book to work with.
Beautiful. And what happens to your contact with the client when you do that?
At that moment, there's a disconnection. And so I've got to bring myself back.
Yeah. And you are able to bring yourself back.
The moment that's why I said that's a tactic that I've used, which is I write it down so that it's not disturbing this process. Yeah.
And do you also see that your own experience in a way gives you much more closer understanding of the client's experience?
I'm not too sure of that. And so that's why I'm curious as to how you use your own techniques, because there's a part of me that says that it might interrupt actually listening purely to what the client's experience is. And so I'm curious, therefore, that's why I came back. You both are so well-trained in your own and belief systems around TA or NLP. What do you do at that moment, and how do you use that? For me, at this point of time, I feel sometimes it might disturb. And so I make a mental note of saying, oh, it's coming up for me. Should I bring it up? Should I just park it? Should I express it? And there's no easy answer. I don't think we can say.
You already came up with 3 options. And
I came up with expression. I came up with reflecting later. What was my third? Expression and reflecting on it later, I think.
And you also said you would make note of it. So that
make a note of it to work with it later. To me, that was a tactic to combine and work with it later.
Seems to be a belief that there is one right option of doing it.
Are you saying that there is a belief that has uncovered here, that there's only one right way?
I'm asking you. You already have 3 options, and still you are sitting with this question: how do you manage it? So there seemed to be.
Okay. So it wasn't a how do you manage it. I'm just curious as to what techniques that you use, which are related to TA or NLP. For yours, I'm curious about your own experiences of how you use it. Because the chance it must be coming up for you as well. You know, the dynamic of that. That's where I was curious.
Shall we unravel this, what happened now between you and me?
Yes, please. Let's do that. Yeah.
The frame of reference. So basically, it also connects to somebody asked the question earlier in terms of how do we avoid suggesting need for an answer. And I think that's important for us to resort to questioning. What did you see me doing? To your response, to your question, I presented to you a series of more questions.
Yeah, you presented it back to me.
These questions, if you really look at that, this is what I was earlier referring to. In TA, we think of possibly this possibly parental belief. It's only possible. It's a hypothesis. So my questions to you were primarily to unravel those beliefs and bring forth the fact that possibly you already have few options. Okay.
So I just want to double click on that. What part of TA specifically would you connect to this process?
There are 3 aspects which you normally find here. One is, of course, the ego states.
Okay.
Which ego state were you in and which ego state I am in. So what was happening between you and me?
Okay.
So what do we do to probably seemingly something that started as a parent-child interaction
to make it adult. Okay.
We also look at it from a process, parallel process point of view. Because you are experiencing almost something similar to what the client is experiencing. So therefore, what do I do in order to model to the client something different? Instead of getting into the client's own process.
Okay.
And if none of this work, then always go back to contracting, saying that, okay, shall we look at what are we doing here? How is it affecting you? So how do you feel right now?
I see the switch. I clearly see, and the switch that you said, which is presenting it as a parent-child and moving it to an adult. I also see techniques used, which we typically learn as a coaching technique, which is a focus on the client. That's the person. So I see that as well. I like that you brought in this piece on the transference as well. So I'm seeing that about how to stop that and then work with what the client wants. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that.
Thanks, Surya.
Thank you, Anil and Surya. I think a lot of our questions that were there from the participants also have gotten addressed. While I will place one question and maybe others, if somebody has a question, can also raise their hands, which is like you've amply shown like coaching is in some ways about us. Like I mean, it's to do with our own processes a lot of times, and what goes in our head, and that gets projected. But a lot of people wanted to know, like, how do you augment the current ICF frameworks, which is mainly about listening as a skill, which is one of the competencies. And from there, how do we, augment it either with TA or with NLP? I'm just placing this point around calibration, since you mentioned, and a couple of people in the chats have also spoken about it, which is how to move away from tools to the skill of listening better.
You want a question from there, or you want us to respond, Kunal?
We can have the questions from the audience. Chanchal, is your question around the same lines, or?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
You said, how does the therapy room looks like? There is client and therapist, and then there is client, and there is client. What is the second and third? Can you please explain a little bit more?
Got it. So when a client comes into the therapy room, they are going to see my personality. And I cannot hide my personality behind that chair. I will show that, or it's seen. They begin to get to see who am I, the texture, the voice, the presence, the, blah, blah, blah. But eventually, at some point in time, they should be able to trust the space so much that as though they are just with themselves. And I shouldn't interfere in the process of them. That brings about listening, silence, stillness in their chaos. I will meet them on the wave, but I got to hold it as though not to be seen, but yet being there to hold it for them with a good with good curiosity, by good voice, by good presence, by being a little lower than where they are. Yeah. And in that process, maybe I'll repeat what they're saying back to them. Maybe I'll present it back to them. Maybe I'll put it in a sentence, but I'll put it in a way it's a question like, oh, so you went out last night, huh? And I'll use those voice and language patterns in a way that they get that realization, they get their awareness, they meet their shadow, they meet their demon, and then they make a choice of integration. Should they access that agency, should they access that autonomy, then I'm there to use the tool. See, medication comes after intervention. So if the intervention is strong enough, well, now you don't need a tool, or you can use any tool. You can use Zumba for that. The tool is insignificant. The skills are everything. Yeah. Once you get through that intervention process, they realize, and the realization is good enough. And that's the beginning of changing the neuro pathway. Otherwise, they will continue to stay in the diabolic split, which has happened because of some impact at some point, at some journey of their life where the abuse happened or the abandonment happened or something like that, where they learned that I'm not good enough or I can't be seen. So they cover it up with compensating behaviors just to avoid the diabolic split. And all we are doing over there is eliciting that, presenting that back to them, which they've mastered. So as much as in therapy room, we work with listening to what they are saying behind what they are saying, one of the biggest work that we do is letting them leave the attachment to what they think is the possible solution to their situation. So that now they have multiple choices and more choices and not just that as one choice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That question.
Thank you, Hinchu. Yeah, go ahead, Parul.
So the way you said that when the client understands that it's just client and client in the therapy room and they understand the limiting belief is I'm not good enough. How do you move them?
Or anything else for that matter.
Whatever. Let's take that example since we've stayed with it. How do you move them to client themselves, then finding the resources or the new beliefs? And unlike in TA where there's a clear contract when when you know that this work is done and now you can start, winding it up, how do you know where your work is done in NLP? So could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, Well, once the client brings it to their awareness, or the client gets the sensation of that awareness, my question to them would be, what do you want to do with that now? The client leads the session on the trajectory which we've contracted to continue. My job is only a referee there. I'm only a referee. They decide what they want at the end of it. The contract is only to see that this trajectory is kept constant. वो बाहर गया तो मैं इंटरफेयर करेगा. वो जब तक उस दायरे के अंदर है, आई एम ओनली आस्किंग कि अब क्या चाहिए आपको, इसके लिए क्या चाहिए आपको, आपके पास नहीं है तो किसके पास है. You getting what I'm saying? Yeah, the client leads the sessions through. I have no agenda.
So as I hear you, Anil, regarding that, I'm reminded in TA, there are two types of contracts we work with. One type of contract is outcome-based contracts. Where you ask what is it that you want, and how would we know that our engagement has served its purpose and so on. But often clients may not be that clear in terms of what is the end result they're looking for. Then what you said is what comes in, where we call as the process contract. We contract or we agree on the process of how we would go about. And step by step, we get back to the contract and say, okay, now that you know this, what do you want to do with this again? So contracting is again something very central to how we work. Yeah.
Yeah, when you don't contract, you're going to fall for everything. If you don't stand up for something, you're going to fall for everything. So contracting is central. I mean, not just therapy. Therapy only offers a framework of micro skills. These micro skills are so important in everyday life to build better quality relationships. Our relationships go out of the window because we don't use these micro skills on an everyday basis. We take things for granted. We contaminate ourselves. We negotiate the non-negotiables in our own life. That's a big mess.
He also with our so many techniques and tools and so on, but the emphasis is always on what one calls in the observing skills. Yeah. In other words, in fact, we call it the Martian view. Practicing how to see things as a Martian, primarily seeing things as they are, which I think is very central and core, and which I think is what, in some sense, the ICF competence also talk about, the coach mindset, where you are observing it, but you are not in it, or you are somewhere in it, but you are not of it. To keep that sense of detached attachment, which is very central to the whole process. So even though TA or NLP, for that matter, looks like a set of models and tools and techniques, I think they're all secondary. It's not choosing one for the other, but I think they have their own space.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very important, to stay detached but not disconnected. Yes, I'm detached, but I'm connected. I'm not associated, but I'm connected. I'm here for you. I see you, I hear you, you belong here. That's central.
And Father George used to say, you sit there as if he or she is the most important person in your life in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just want to say, Anil, Surya, like a lot of common points, all I rather say that, calibration, presence, listening, detachment, distance. So all of them are so central to the coaching world as well. And Anil, as in one of your classes, you told how coaching evolved from the foundations of NLP in the 80s. So obviously it's built on onto that. Truly. Yep. So just taking a stock here. Anybody has any questions? Otherwise, I can move to the next set of. Yes, go ahead, Suchitra.
Suchitra. Hi.
You
got to unmute yourself, Suchitra. See, that's a suggestion I gave. I gave it hard. So you got to unmute it, Suchitra. I could do that because I know her. We both know her.
I don't. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Now, taking on the question on contracting that both Surya and Anil you used. So there is a contracting which is there for a longer time. But in NLP, is this more a shorter here and now kind of a contract that a coach decides to use an NLP, process or a framework? So that's something that, I'm not able to clarify my question too well. But when do we basically differentiate? I understand NLP more for counseling and therapy because that's how I have experienced it. So how do we differentiate that it can be used for coaching as against when it is right to be used for therapy?
Correct. Well, NLP is not exclusive, it's inclusive. And I think that's true for every other modality. Okay. The wisdom doesn't lie in the tool. The tool does nothing. The wisdom lies in the therapist, the field, and the client. At that point in time in the here and now, we calibrate and we realize that, well, I was working with a issue, but I think something which is more potent is available over here for me to, move and work on something else. There is a bigger umbrella contract, where the client is coming in for something, and then there will be these minute subsets of those contracts. Well, this whole aspect can be looked at as a brief therapy and then as a long-term goal therapy. Yeah, a goal therapy can be a 12-week hand-holding session or a 3-month hand-holding session. But these big 3-month sessions are built on maybe 5 smaller 3-3 sessions, which is on a particular topic. These are brief therapies. Many brief therapies will create this big goal. So if you are taking a 12-week program with somebody, I'm sure you're not working on the same issue for all the 12 weeks. You're working on something and you'll close that on the 2nd or the 3rd week. And then you'll take something else to work on and you will close that. So each of this will have a segment. And for that segment, you may use different tools and different approaches and different style. And maybe you're working with the timeline. Maybe you're working with reframing. Maybe you're working with anchoring. Tools don't exist in isolation. They exist mutually. So maybe I'll use a concept of TA and then maybe I'll use constellation psychodrama. And it's not which one to use. It's what can I use? I may use a bird's eye chili, but I'll also want the Kashmiri chili because when I change the dish, I want the other chili. So more the better. Keep more skills, not certificates.
Right. So if I can just extend this a little further, and this is more because we are somewhere stuck between the whole ICF framework where you're not allowed to suggest or you're not allowed to recommend, etc. to a client, right? It has to be more coming from them. But a lot of times when, for example, what you did as the work was brilliant, in just 5 minutes to try and make a person change a perception about a belief that he has. Obviously, you're far experienced, so you made it look where the person was able to internalize and say, okay, I got it. But with a client, it may be more suggestion from the coach's end. So if you could elaborate as to where all can it be used in coaching,
okay,
it would be useful. Yeah.
Well, when I say suggestion, I mean to say we don't suggest, but you can use a parallel universe, be a good storyteller. Well, I can say, well, you know what? Krishna did tell Arjun something. And if Krishna was here, what do you think he would have told you? And that moment, जब कृष्णा ने अपना हथियार डाल दिया था, तो अर्जुन ने जब हथियार डाल दिया था, तो कृष्ण ने उनसे कुछ कहा था. And what do you think Krishna would tell you? Or I can use suggestions. I can use mythology. I can use fairy tales. I can use the stories of, I can be a good storyteller. Or you can use metaphors by saying that, you know what, when you take the dog out for a walk, the dog is also taking you out for a walk. Life sometimes gets us. What do you do when the dog takes you out for a walk? You pull the dog back and remind the dog who's the master. Yeah.
Yeah, it will take a lot of practice. Thank you so much.
That's a belief. That was a belief. It will take a lot of time. We speak beliefs in our everyday conversation. That was a belief. What if it could happen faster? Would you receive it?
Absolutely.
It's yours.
Yeah. In fact, Eric Burns said, believe in one session cure.
Yeah.
Which is
And
what
that's where NLP got its popularity from, right? The one session cure. Someone went and told Bandler that time heals everything. And Bandler says, I agree with you. Why the fuck should I wait? I'm agreed. So now the discussion is not on whether it is possible or not. Now the discussion is on reducing time. NLP is therefore an effective methodology to bring to you what would otherwise happen in now a shorter time. We are able to get off the pain of our first breakup, which we thought we'll never get off. But after 6 years, we realized that the one we broke up with is only a password in our life. So, मतलब 6 साल में शायद वो solve हो गया problem. So, so time heals it. Well, now the question is, can I have a better skill set to reduce the time?
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Suchitra.
Go ahead, Tejasvi. And then I have one more question which we can take on before we wrap up. From the audience. Yeah.
My question is to both Surya and Anil. As I do the work with clients, I also realize that it's my responsibility to work on myself as well. The self-work becomes important. So what in your experience has helped you do the self-work on yourself over the years? Is it something that you do by yourself or in supervision or a combination of both? Anything specific you can speak to that?
for me, in my experience, I would say self-work never stops. Maybe the frequency of seeking help might reduce, and possibly the speed with which I could bounce back may reduce, but I think the need to work on ourselves never goes away. Initial days, there used to be a lot of personal therapy, counseling, and so on. And slowly, when we get into more and more practice and experience, I think it comes in the form of supervision. But supervision can never be a substitute for personal therapy or counseling. We'll still need, at times, therapy and counseling. And another thing I found is no one modality or methodology works, at least for me. Even the transactional analysis has been my first introduction into self-work. As I said, I have done a lot of work with NLP, in NLP therapy, with Gestalt, with psychotrauma, and with team-centered interaction, and several other group-related works like process labs and so on. So even mindfulness and vipassana, there are so many modalities that works for me. So I always say there's no one right way. My experience is experiment and then find out what works for you. And different stages in life, different things might be appealing. So I believe in trusting the process and flowing with life. So, yeah. But the thing is, keep focusing and calibrating yourself. I think that is the key.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was staying in touch with my teachers who agreed to work with me for the last many years. When I was with Dick, I had 6 years with him. And then with Judy, I have my years after 2018 se lekar aaj tak and still ahead. So having that one teacher mentorship did make a lot of difference to me, where I could just have conversations and therapies and supervisions. And what really worked, what I really give merit to, is spending time in silence. To be able to simply sit for maybe 30 minutes. When I'm eating food, just eat the food. To get into dopamine fasting. To get into that framework of not being attached as somebody else's to-do list, or this constant technology advancement of getting it faster, being ahead. I think that was a big learning, the gift of silence, or what you call as the vipassana. Yeah, that was a big game changer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anil, I know you have a hard stop. We are drawing close to the end of this session, but we can go on. I think I am totally at loss of words because I experience myself in a flow state as I hear you both. But just one thing, if you can throw some spotlight on Anil, and then maybe if you want, you can drop off, and Surya, if you can stay on for a couple of more minutes. The question from many people is, how does the learning journey for these modalities looks like? I mean, in a simpler, dirtier way, what does the certification process looks like? So how does an ICF coach starts that? Maybe if you can just talk a little bit about both.
I'll speak for a minute or two and then I'll bounce off. And
sure.
Well, in my opinion, one shouldn't be looking at the certification process unless it's a university course or unless you're looking for some benefits. You can take those certificates and burn it and throw it away. I don't think the certification has any much value, especially because everything is a private organization. My personal view, and that's my understanding. Find a place which will upgrade you in your skill set. Find a place which will ground you on the surface. Find a place where your trajectory would change, your relationships would matter, and your goals would be more within. And if that works with you, then be on that learning journey. The last question you should ask a trainer is, what's my certification? I think that's only a commercial aspect. That's only a capitalization agenda. That's the last question. I stop my conversation with people when they ask that question. I hand it over to somebody else. Because I begin to understand he's not interested in the skills. He's not interested in the experience. His first priority will be certification. Second priority would be fees. And wo banda class mein nahi hai to bhi farak nahi padega. My point is, find a place where you can learn the skills. And if you can learn the skills, you can learn it in 2 days, in 5 days, in 10 days, in 20 days. Find the right teacher. Find the right tree. Find your guava tree. Yeah, that's my response to the commercialization and the capitalization of certification. And I have a very strong view for that. Yeah. So that's me. So I'm going to
so much.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Shanti. Thank you, Surya.
Thank you.
Held the space for me. Not that intimidating though. And thank you, everybody. Hope to see
one question from Anil.
Such a joy working with you.
We'll have to. Anil has a call, so may I request, like, if you can let him go.
I'll just take one. Can I?
Okay. To me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, how to contact to you? I mean,
I will put that link in the chat box.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you, Surya.
Thank you, Anil. So the TA certification, again, I would like to make the distinction between training and certification. And in TA, the emphasis is a lot on the training, because when you look at the fraction of people who go for the final certification, it will be much, much lesser. Basically, because the emphasis is on working on self and then working on building skills to work with clients. So that is how it is. But to give you a timeline, it would be like, the introduction to TA is a 2-day program. We call it the TA 101. Okay. In fact, I'm offering one the coming weekend, which is online. And then once you have done the 2-day program, which is a prerequisite for you to go into a foundation training. Foundation level training takes about anywhere from 12 to 18 months, within which there will be about 120 hours of training, 120 to 140 hours of training, and where the emphasis is a lot on the application of TA on self, for your own self-growth and awareness and so on. Because once we could see change in our own selves, then comes the practitioner level training, which again goes from anywhere from 12 to 18 months, for another 120 to 140 hours of training, where the training is more on applying all that we are learning on with our clients and client systems, where supervision also begins and so on. And of course, the first level of international certification is the CTA, that is a Certified Transactional Analyst, which normally takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years, because there's a whole lot of requirements to be fulfilled there. So if you could go through the ITA website, you could see all the handbooks giving you all the details. But there are some interim regional certifications, like if you have done your foundations level training, then you can go for the diploma in TA, which is offered by SATA. And then if you have done the practitioner level training, you can go for the developmental transaction analysis practitioner certification, which is a regional certification offered by SATA as well. So all these hours are actually cumulative, that eventually could lead to CTA and so on. But as Anil was emphasizing, the focus is a lot on training, because especially coaches and trainers and consultants would like to build more skills to look at how can I leverage, say, TA in my practice as a coach. And then at some stage, when you feel the confidence to go for certification, you go for the certification. If we don't start, it's not a time-bound certification process. It's more of a competence-bound certification process. So people choose their own timeline. Yeah. Yes, Kunal?
Yes, Surya. So thank you for sharing that. Just checking if anyone has a follow-up. Anyone needs a clarification to that. Okay. Oops. Cool. Okay, so good place for us to pause today's session. Thank you, everyone. I have already mentioned Anil's and Surya's details in the chat. In fact, I've gone ahead and put up that post, Surya, where you are doing the TA 101. So people can find all the details there and contact you. Put that in the chat. So you can do that, and obviously reach out to us, reach out to Surya and Anil directly if you have any further questions. If you hope you all like the session. And Surya, again, you and Anil, thank you again for being there and enlightening us today with your wisdom and all the experience that you have gained over these years. Very profound. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. Thanks, all of you.
Thank you. Well, I've just added the link to the next session, which is happening on 4th, just so you can register while you're on the session. And super humble to have both Anil and Surya. And thank you, Kunal, for moderating it so beautifully well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.